What's going on? Well,
You're muted. You're muted. I don't know what happened, but you're just muted.
look at that. Look at that. Look at that. We're going to kick it off again. What's going on, Luca Nation? Welcome back to episode 12 of Scouts. And we're getting into the thick of things with the NBA playoffs. We got the Suns sweeping the Nuggets. Exciting stuff. We got the Bucks and the Nets. Wow, that's going to be a series now. How much can change in a few days? We're going to get into Clippers and the Jazz, and then wrap it up with the Hawks Sixers. We got to go with your prediction. You could not have called the sweep more accurately. You said 5 games, more likely 4 games. Suns beating the Nuggets. What do you think was the differentiator in this series?
Defense all the way. The Nuggets had none of it, and the Suns had all of it. Very simple. I mean, it was. We went in more in depth in the last episode, so I don't want to, just repeat everything here. But overall, I mean, the Suns really do have everything it takes to win a title. But if they face the Nets, they're going to struggle because, I mean, it's a super team, right? Like, if everyone's healthy on that Nets squad and it's the Nets versus Suns finals, that is the one team I could see, beating them. I think that they could stand a chance against the Clippers in a 7-game series. They are a really good team. They just have everything that it needs to win. They have leadership. They have offense, they have defense, they have scoring, they have playmaking, the one major improvement could be rebounding. But they have good defense on the inside and on the outside. They have depth, great coaching, culture. I think I already mentioned leadership. They have it all. They have everything you need in a championship squad. And this team is just really good. The Nuggets had holes. They had injured players. They don't have defense. And overall, that the defense that the Suns were able to provide brought out and really exposed some of the inconsistencies with players on the Nuggets bench. And ultimately, that was their downfall, leaving Jokic with little to no support during many of these games. And the Suns swept them in 4 games in this series. So now they get some time to rest.
Let's have some fun. So, we're a sports card network. We talk about sports, we talk about different things, but we are a sports card network. And if you think about it, I don't think there's a team out there with more investable players than the Suns. Let's think about that, right? So we have, just lowering my mic volume here. You have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. 5 potential guys that people are legitimately buying cards of. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there, Conrad. Who do you think's the best investment? I know I'm kind of springing this on you. You haven't checked prices and pop and all that. Are you someone that's like Cam Johnson's a buy? Or are you thinking, wow, Chris Paul, now his career is maybe going to finish with 1 championship, Hall of Famer? Maybe his cards are worth a buy. What do you think?
Out of everybody, out of the 5 guys you just mentioned specifically, that's a really tough question. There's a lot of different routes you could go. You could go with Chris Paul as a nice, somewhat safe investment, although, of course, his cards are really high right now in comparison to where we've seen them in recent memory. So you could buy him now. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, I think, regardless of whether he gets a ring or not. He's been a fantastic point guard for however many years of his career, and obviously he's still continuing to play great basketball today. But of course, adding that ring onto his resume will push him further up, the all-time rankings for many people. And he's a nice, safe investment. Well, like many veterans are, just a very safe investment that you can make for a longer term hold that you could buy now and wait for the pre-Hall of Fame induction spike, something like that. DeAndre Ayton is a really interesting case as well. I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to buy him, but he's a very interesting case for investing for a couple of reasons. A, he's a big man. Very few big men get any love whatsoever in the NBA unless they are very young or they're like a number 1 or number 2 like center or big man in the league like Jokic or Embiid. And those are like really the only guys that get love besides unicorns. And Ayton fits into the younger version of that, right? He was the number 1 overall pick for a reason, very physically dominant player. And right now he's playing some of the best basketball he's ever played in his entire career. And if he can continue to bring this same level of effort and energy into next season, there's some real potential for his cards, especially at the prices that they're at right now, because people aren't really paying attention to his production. They're just kind of paying attention to the averages, but he's been playing phenomenal defense during this entire playoff run and also bringing in on the offensive side as well. So he's definitely an interesting case. And then, of course, I'm just going to at least have to mention Devin Booker. Probably going to go down as one of the highest scoring players of all time, ending with however many thousands of points when it's all said and done. He can take over a game at any moment. He looks like he's on track to become a superstar in the NBA, a guy that can probably lead you to a championship. And he's only 24 or 25, still super young. He feels like he's a 10-year vet, which just kind of shows how young he was when he came into the league. So those are the three guys. That's the case for each of them. I think that it just depends on who you are. I can never give an investment for everybody to go out there and buy because everyone's different. If you want to go the safe route, go with Chris Paul and somewhat long term. If you want to play short term, somewhat of a gamble, go with Ayton, right? Because you can make a pretty good amount of money in a very quick amount of time, but then there's also a really good chance you lose a good amount of money as well. And if you want to just go with the best chance of happening, but with lower returns in a short period of time, that's probably going to be Devin Booker. So whichever one of those situations sounds best to you listening to this right now, that would be my pick for the Suns roster.
Conrad, I was about less than a week ago sitting here, egg on my face. I picked the Bucks to beat the Nets, and they were down 2-0, and they got blown out by 40 points. I think it was 45 points. I can't remember. Then they go back to Milwaukee. They drink the magic stuff that they have in Space Jam, and now it's 2-2, and Kyrie's out. Harden's, you don't know if he's playing in Game 5. What do you make of the series, man? Have you ever seen anything like this?
Personally, no, I haven't. For as long as I've been following basketball, which even though I'm only 16, so it's not like I have a ton of basketball knowledge and experience from the past 30 years or 20 years or even the past 16 years that I've been alive, right? I've never seen anything like this. It's insane. Bucks look awful for the first two games. Nets are on fire. They lost James Harden. They still played well. Now they lose Kyrie. He's out for Game 5 as well. It's been confirmed he is out for Game 5. Harden, I don't think that we.
It looked bad. That it looked like a pretty serious ankle injury. It didn't look like one of those that you could come back from.
In a boot leaving the stadium. That's bad. That's not good. I wouldn't be surprised if he was out for, honestly, the rest of the postseason. But we don't know about that yet. Because a boot and crutches is very serious. That's not something you do if you just think, oh, it's just an ankle sprain, a soft sprain, and it'll be fine. That's not what you normally do. But regardless, Game 3, both teams play absolutely horribly. Bruce Brown thinks he's Michael Jordan and can't back it up whatsoever. And overall, just both teams look terrible. Then
how important was that game? How important? Like, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
when Game 3 happened and I was watching the end of the game, I was like, okay, Bruce Brown, he woke up feeling dangerous, as they say. I think he took 3 floaters in the last minute and he missed. But I was like, well, the Nets are still going to win this series. But now that game looks like a pivotal game. And those shots, when they could have won that game going 3-0 versus 2-1 and now 2-2, that's going to be a game I think we're going to look back at and be like, the Nets are going to be like, we let one slide. We let one get away.
Here's what I will say. It's very similar to what I mentioned, I don't know, 3 episodes ago. A 2-0 lead is the worst lead that you can possibly have in any game or in any series, because as soon as one goal is scored or as soon as one game is taken away by the other team, it becomes a 2-1 lead. And all of a sudden, while you feel like you are sitting pretty, you're super comfortable with a 2-0 lead, there's no way they can catch up, it takes one goal to change the momentum in an instant like that. And it's the worst lead that you can possibly have for that reason. And that's kind of what happened there. It was a bad game for both teams, but the Bucks came out on top. And all of a sudden, the 2-0 lead became a 2-1 lead, giving them all the momentum. And they come out in Game 4, and they played very well. They made some changes, and we'll discuss those things later. But honestly, while that may seem like the most important game now, in every playoff series, if it gets this far, Game 5 is the most important game every single time, because either A, a team is winning 4-1, B, a team is breaking a tie that was originally 2-2 and one of them is getting on top at 3-2, and those are the only two options, right? No, yeah, those are the only two options. If it gets to a Game 5, one team is going up, or a team is down 3-1 and they manage to make it a 3-2 series. All of a sudden, very similar to what I just mentioned, it's now a 1-game lead instead of a 2-game lead, and you feel like you have no momentum. Things change in an instant. Game 5 is the most important game, which is why I'm pretty excited for the game. I don't know if it's tonight or tomorrow when the Bucks and Nets play again. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. It's gonna be fun.
So
You think Durant goes off for 50 or 60?
I don't know. I really don't know. It kind of depends because this is something I wanted to say. Coach Bud, props to you. You made some changes. Giannis was playing at the center position for those of you that don't know in game 4. And in my opinion, it kind of looked like it threw the Nets for a loop and made it a little bit more difficult for them. And overall, that some changes may need to be made. So depending on what Steve Nash decides to do, if he decides to make any certain adjustments, I think that Durant could certainly go off for 50 points. I think it's possible. I mean, he won't have Kyrie. He may have Harden. So, of course, maybe things aren't the same. But in order for this team to win, he's going to have to, without Kyrie or Harden, he's probably going to have to drop 50 points in, these next 2 games or the next 2 wins for this Nets team in order to take this series. But I don't think that the supporting cast is as bad as other people are making it, which is something I just wanted to put out there as well.
Let's say Harden's out, Kyrie's out. Maybe Harden plays games in and out, but let's say Harden's out.
Yep.
Maybe this is a better way to word this. Who has more to gain and who has more to lose from this series? Is it Giannis or is it Kevin Durant?
By that, you mean by winning the series and lose?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That is such a tough question. Because, damn, you said with Harden out and with Kyrie out, correct?
I'll give you my take and then maybe that'll help you. So we've seen Durant has had success at Oklahoma. He went to the Warriors. He went with the Warriors, but it wasn't his team. He came here and he had Kyrie and Harden, which still people question his legacy and, hey, he's never really won on his own. Now he has a real opportunity, and you guys know I'm not a big LeBron guy, but LeBron has carried teams on his back. Now, without Kyrie and Harden, is kind of Durant's moment to shine. And if he could lead them to win this series and even take them to the NBA Finals, I think those narratives that Durant can't carry a team on his shoulder might come into question. On the other hand, you have a guy, Giannis, who he's battled through adversity. He doesn't have the best shot. People question him. He's nervous. He's not having success at the foul line. But somehow, some way, he finds a way to play tough defense, to make adjustments, like you said, and get his team to the finals and past this Brooklyn Nets team. That's huge for his legacy. So I think I've said this from day one, this is a defining series for people's careers.
I agree, especially with the KD take. I was going to say the same thing when I was asking specifically with Kyrie and Harden out. I wasn't sure about that. 100% agree. He specifically came to Brooklyn so he could win on his own, prove that he could win on his own team. And in my opinion, as soon as the Harden trade went through, that narrative went out the window. If you bring Harden in and that's how you win a championship, I don't care. You didn't win on your own. You still had to bring in a top 5 player, a superstar, onto your team in order to ensure that you win a championship when you already probably would have won anyway, in my opinion. And that narrative was already kind of sitting on the edge of the windowsill, but hadn't exactly fallen out the window yet. You know what I mean? Now with Giannis, things are different. Like I like what you mentioned, playing good defense and all that sort of stuff. He's a very good player. He's still very young. He's got time to obviously, dictate the entire course of his career. But I think that this series is a bit more important for Giannis's career as well than a lot of other people think, because he just signed a supermax extension with this team. They just traded for an older Drew Holiday, and they literally have no room to make any more changes onto this roster. People are already beginning to question, can he actually be the leading scorer on a championship squad? He has no skill. He can't shoot threes. He can't score from the free throw line. He can't dribble the ball or create for himself whatsoever. These questions are already starting to rise, and it could definitely be difficult for not necessarily his career, because I don't think that I'm not explaining this correctly. I don't think that the criticisms or the narrative that will be around him at that moment will define his career path, because he obviously has time to change it. Whereas Durant is older, and the narrative that he can't win on his own will probably stick with him for the rest of his career if he doesn't win on his own soon. So I would say that Durant's is more important because he doesn't have enough time to change the narrative if it officially becomes he can't win on his own. Whereas with Giannis, he's 26, 27 years old, and while he did sign a supermax extension with this team, meaning he's probably going to be here for a while and it's going to take a while for that narrative to change, he still has the time to do it. So I think that if KD not necessarily loses this series, but regardless of the outcome, whatever happens for KD in this series will define pretty much the entirety of the narrative for the rest of his career and what happens after he retires. But with Giannis, it's like for the next 5 years, this series could dictate what the narrative is. But then after that, things can completely change depending on his play style, whatever team he's on, and whatever he's accomplished up to that point. So I would go with KD.
Spencer Dinwiddie, how's that knee of yours?
I'd call him up
It
too.
might be that time.
There were rumors that he would be returning in the playoffs. There were rumors. I actually haven't checked recently to see if like that's been brought up at all. But there were rumors that he could come back because of the progress that he was making, that he could come back before the season was over. And honestly, if that ever did happen, which I doubt it does, but if that does happen, I think that the Nets would have a major shot at getting over this Buck squad. But like I said in Scouts, like episode 8 or however many episodes this is, I kind of honestly forgetting. If Harden was out past Game 5, I was gonna give this to I was probably gonna give this to the Bucks in 7. And now you have Harden and Irving out. I struggle to see this Nets squad as currently constructed without the two of them getting over the Bucks squad, especially if they are actually making changes to the way they approach this series, which they did by moving Giannis to the 5 and Brook Lopez was basically just acting as a stretch 4. So yeah, I mean, it may be time to call up Spencer Dinwiddie, see, hey, you feel like playing some basketball before the season is over, but scary. It's a scary couple of games for the Brooklyn Nets for sure.
All right, real quick. There were some accusations. You know how the internet is. Luka Doncic not happy in Dallas.
Yes.
Mark Cuban came out, tweeted, and said total bullshit. He did tweet and put that. But we've been saying, we've been hearing some grumblings. KP's not happy with Luka. Luka's not happy with the Mavs. Any take on this? I know it's early on.
100%. The Mavericks have never been good at drafting players. They didn't even draft Luka. They traded for him. They've never been good at drafting. They're not a big market team, so they're not exactly going to sign any big free agents. They made the trade for Kristaps Porzingis, which at the time was a smart move, but since then it's become very obvious that he's an injury-prone player, which is going to definitely just make it harder for him to not only stay on the court consistently, but can also affect his play, which we're already beginning to see take shape. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of their coaching staff and their front office overall. Luka Doncic has to get out of Dallas as soon as possible if he wants to have any shot as retiring as the GOAT, because he does have that potential. First player in a long time that we've ever seen that actually has potential to go down as the greatest player of all time, right? And he may be one of the first players that we see decline his rookie extension, which is going to be coming up this offseason. Here's what will happen with the contract. His contract details, for those of you that don't know. 2018 is when he was drafted, which means that in 2020 his 2-year deal expires, but he has a 2-year player option on the table, or team option on the table as well. They can offer him a contract extension, I believe, after the 2-year deal is up if he wants to take it. If he declines, the team can use their player option to retain him for 2 more years. After that, they can still, of course, they can't offer him an extension, I don't believe, until after the 3rd year. I got that wrong. Of his team option. And so if he declines that, they still have 1 more year with him on the team, and then he hits the open market. I believe he will still be a restricted free agent, though, meaning that whatever contract he is offered from any other team, the Dallas Mavericks can match that. So in my opinion, if Luka Doncic wants to get out of Dallas, what he'll have to do is ask for a 1-year deal from a team. 1-year deal, $45 million or whatever the max amount of money he can get out of 1 year is. Ask for that. Have the Dallas Mavericks match it, and then leave after that 1 year is up, because then he becomes an unrestricted free agent on the market. That is how he can get out of Dallas as soon as possible. Now, the risk with that is he takes a 1-year deal. If he gets injured, all of a sudden his value does dip in the marketplace. If he suffers a major injury. That's why so many rookies do take their contract extension, because that is how you continue to make money, or you retire as a successful NBA player, is getting that contract extension, because you have safety for the next 5 years in case you get injured, right? So he has to determine whether he's valuing financial security more or valuing his legacy as a basketball player and his accomplishments as a basketball player more. And that will dictate what he does in this offseason, and what I personally believe he should do this offseason.
You're going to be a future GM. I already see
I
it.
hope so.
It's written. You would crush it.
That's my dream job.
It would be amazing. Let's make that happen. Luca Nation Network, really in full effect. But you know what? Watching Luca, he doesn't seem to me as someone who's as injury prone as a Zion or a Ja, just given the way that he plays the game.
No, 100%. He's not an athlete. There's much less injury risk involved with him because he's not jumping 40 inches. He's not 280 pounds running at like a 5'5", 40-yard dash or something ridiculous like that or whatever it is, right? He's just not a freak athlete, and he's not using that athleticism to his advantage, meaning he's put into less high-risk injury situations. It's very simple. Does that mean he's not at any risk for injury prone, like being injury prone? I would say no, because he's been playing basketball at such a high level. Here's what I'll say. Luka Doncic has been playing basketball at such a high level for a very long time. For those of you that don't know, he was playing in the EuroLeague or in the Euros at like 16 years old and playing against NBA level competition, sometimes coming overseas to the United States to play against NBA players at 16 years old. That has helped him, develop an NBA mind of a 5-year vet at the age of 21. But at the same time, that means that he's also basically got the body, quote unquote, of an NBA vet. The wear and tear on his body is the same of him as a 5-year vet, even though he's only been in the NBA for 2 years or 3 years or so, right? So his body may wear down a little bit sooner than people want to, but at the same time, it's part of the reason for his early success. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, or it is a blessing and could be a curse in the future. That's how I should put it.
That last 4 or 5 minutes on Luka, that's a clip in and of itself. That was one of the best breakdowns on Luka's contract, what could happen to him once that contract expires, how he gets out of Dallas. That was phenomenal. So we have a content team working on this. That's a clippable moment right there, a few moments. Clippers Jazz. What do you make?
This is the most exciting series for me. Most exciting series. I love this. 2 close games to begin with, a game-winning block by Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. What did I tell you guys? Defensive Player of the Year right there.
You love Gobert. Guys, before we head into the playoffs, we were doing final season awards, and we're talking Defensive Player of the Year, and Conrad was straight up. He said, I love Ben Simmons. He's good, but he's nowhere near the level of Gobert. And
not at all. He should have won that award unanimously, in my opinion. And I still believe that 100%. Regardless, 2 very close games and a game-winning block in the first 2 games, and the Clippers come back and I wouldn't say blow out to the Jazz, but definitely crush their spirits a little bit in Game 3, and all of a sudden there's more momentum on their side. There's still some changes that need to be made on the Clippers side of things, but it's looking really nice. This is a very exciting matchup, especially because Donovan Mitchell's going off. Paul George is being more consistent. Kawhi Leonard is Kawhi Leonard. Lots of stuff to enjoy in this series, and I'm absolutely loving it. However, there's still some coaching adjustments Ty Lue needs to make, and the biggest one that I want to mention is Rajon Rondo not getting minutes. I don't understand it. Reggie Jackson, we've complained about Reggie Jackson a lot, and every time that we do, he's actually played pretty well. He dropped, I think, 29. My dryer just went off. We got some clothes in there. He just dropped 29 in Game 2. 50-50 splits, and then dropped 17 in Game 3 on, I believe, like 70% from the field and 80% from 3 or something like that. Super efficient scoring, and for that, he deserves a round of applause, a pat on the back, right? When he's on fire, he's good and deserves minutes. Patrick Beverley, however, I believe is coming off the bench. He does not deserve as many minutes as he is getting. Split his time with Rajon Rondo because this team needs a playmaker. And especially if you compare Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo, the one thing that everybody talks about with Beverley is his defense. I already said that I think he's an overrated defender. And Rajon Rondo is a solid defender as well. The one what is it called? The one piece of leverage, the one thing that Beverley does better on the defensive end than Rajon Rondo does, in my opinion, is defend the mid-range.
Is foul people.
Well, that too. That is very true.
Hack, reach, and foul is what Patrick
Basically,
Beverly does
just
really well.
the complete pest. Yes, exactly. But overall, that is the one thing that he does better is defend mid-range shots because he's relatively agile, and Rajon Rondo has his moments, but it's not as consistent, especially due to his age. But he's a very good playmaker, and this team needs someone to run the offense. I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Conrad, when your parents, when they go grocery shopping and they load up on snacks and they do cereals, and you go into the pantry and you're like, there's so many goodies here. I want to eat them all at once, but I can't, right?
Uh-huh.
I think we see that with the guards of the Clippers. Like Tyronn Lue's like, you got Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, Rajon Rondo, Patrick Beverly. I'm just going to throw them all in there. It doesn't matter.
Basically. Yeah. He's just like, you know what? Tonight you get 10 minutes, you get 17, you get 7. If someone gets injured, you can go in there. Just do whatever you want. I don't really
Just
care.
do whatever. He doesn't look at his watch. He's like, it's 10 a.m. I probably don't need 20 Rice Krispie treats. Okay, Patrick Beverly, sit on the bench.
There we go.
It's noon. I could eat a salad. Okay, Rondo, you're in. Maybe some decision making would help there with Tyronn Lue and understanding that every series there's different matchups and knowing what matchups you need. You don't need a Patrick Beverly. You don't need a Reggie Jackson. You need a playmaker, and you need a 3-and-D guy like Terrence Mann. We've said that time and time again. It's interesting that this is your favorite series. I was surprised by that.
It just is. There's a lot of narratives. There's a lot of exciting stuff to watch. Whereas like the other series, I think Suns and Nuggets was awesome. I think it was great, but like I just like this. I just love this series a lot. There's so much to love. Nets and Bucks, it's all right, but there's so much going on with injuries, bad performances. It's just like very sporadic. 76ers and Hawks is all right. But honestly, kind of similar. There's been injuries and players out, and it's just there's a lot of stuff going on in this Clippers Jazz series that's good that I'm absolutely loving. Especially on the player side of things.
So talk to me. Let's wrap this. Joel Embiid, MVP candidate, Sixers. They're up 2-1 against the Hawks. What do you see here? You see the Hawks are a young team. Are they gritty enough to keep at it, or do you think the Sixers kind of run away with this?
The loss of DeAndre Hunter is going to be the reason I think that the Hawks lose this series. I said that they would win this series, I believe, after game 1. Then they lost Hunter in game 2, and in my opinion, that's a very big loss for them on both sides of the ball. He was kind of developing into a very good, I wouldn't say second option because they have so many guys that could be a second option depending on the night. So I'll say third option because no one on that team is really consistent, which is something that I'll talk about here in a couple of moments. But then he's also a really good defender for this team as well. And they do lack on the wing. They do lack, some pretty good defense, which is something that is pretty crucial going into the series with guys like Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Seth Curry, and even Ben Simmons sometimes playing on the wing if, Shake Milton comes in and they decide to throw him on the 4, right? So overall, I would think that the 76ers win the series. Even I think with the loss of Danny Green, I believe he's out. And even with Embiid playing through a torn meniscus, which is absolutely incredible to say the least, he's performing very well regardless of that. But something that I do want to mention that I just talked about a couple seconds ago, this Hawks bench is really inconsistent. And we saw, and I believe it was game 3 especially, you could see that Doc Rivers was deciding to take advantage of that and, in a sense, do the opposite of what the Clippers did against the Mavs. What the Clippers did against the Mavs eventually was they let Luka do whatever the hell he wanted, but they prevented the supporting cast from scoring. That was their main objectives. Luka, you could drop 50, but the supporting cast is only going to give you 20, and that is it. And you guys are not going to score enough points to actually win the game. Whereas, in my opinion, Doc Rivers is kind of taking the approach of, Trae Young, you can kind of ball out. We're going to switch Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle on you when it is necessary. But overall, you are not our main focus, our main guy to stop. You can do whatever you want, but we are going to focus on stopping you, but we are going to let the supporting cast do whatever the hell they want because they tend to be inconsistent. John Collins gets into foul trouble very often, very frequently. Danilo Gallinari tends to be inconsistent as a player. Same thing with Bogdanovic. Same thing with Huerter. They all have their on nights and off nights, and you kind of just have to play the game and hope that everyone's on fire at the same time, which doesn't happen very often for this team. And I think
which is what happened game 1, right? That's literally what would happen. They put up 76 points in the first half, and
they played
everyone caught fire.
Was clicking exactly. And game 3 still looked like a good game from them from the box score, but if you watched it, they were very, very inconsistent. They couldn't knock down shots when they needed to. Players were a bit inefficient from the field. Overall, it's a bit sloppy because the supporting cast around Trae Young just cannot consistently support him, which kind of defeats the purpose of being called a supporting cast. Kind of sucks for him, and I feel.
And I don't think Trae has enough tools in the tool belt to go off for 50 a night like Luka does consistently. He has more weapons, but he hasn't put up those monster numbers like Luka has.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. And part of the reason he's also so dangerous is because he also does a really good amount of playmaking, and Luka does well, which is one of the reasons why Luka is a GOAT. Well, not a GOAT. He has potential to go down as one of the greatest because he combines a super high level of consistent high-level scoring with an insane passing ability, whereas Trae Young is a bit less consistent and a bit lower volume in the scoring numbers, but is also a phenomenal passer, right? So, while he is a great player, he may not be good enough to carry this team or an inconsistent support cast to a finals appearance or to a championship or something along those lines, right? Which, it sucks, but it's just how the cookie crumbles. You got to get a consistent second option and third option on this team if you want Trae to potentially win a championship. Is most likely what's going to happen. Yeah, that's what I got. That's all I got.
Love it. We'll be back with you guys on Thursday. This was an awesome episode. Conrad, you really brought it. And our fans, our community is growing. Please share. Please subscribe. We don't really do any advertising or anything like that. So you're really the comments I'm getting is your game. You're stepping your game up. And today you really brought it. There's some good moments here. We'll be back with you guys on Thursday. A few series will be wrapped up. I have a feeling the Bucks-Nets series will be an interesting topic on Thursday. Thank you, guys.